Hello, and welcome. Today I thought I really just wanted to try making a Minecraft world, and essentially just kind of trying to let go of my kind of performance persona of sorts, and see if I can better articulate my thoughts while doing so. And so I wanted to try to make just like a little podcast-like thing, essentially. And firstly, I don't even know if it's going to like record it properly, but that's not really the point. Minecraft is just kind of a thing that I can do, even though it's been a while since I've really played much. It's just something I can do without too much thought, and I can just go along and speak because, I overthink things really easily, and so I'm trying not to do that. So it's nice to have something that I can kind of just semi-focus on, and I think this and like Tetris and like Slay the Spire are all really good games for that. So I'm trying to decide if I want to always be playing Minecraft while I'm doing these, or if I want to switch up games. But essentially, I have a really hard time talking to most people and like articulating my thoughts to them, because my thinking brain and my speaking brain are two very different parts of my brain, and so it's very strange. I should really just make a pickaxe, and whatever it's called. But anywho, so I'm hoping, because with my friends, occasionally I can get to a point where I don't get into that mode of kind of like I'm able to articulate with them. But considering I might try to get people, like some of my friends, onto this little podcast thing, but we'll see. That's not really my concern at the moment. Right now I'm just trying to get my brain into that state of mind, essentially, where I can just think and talk and not have to worry about stuff. And I have a lot of things on my mind, and I think plenty of people do. And if this is my way that I am able to get those out, then I think it might be helpful for me. So I thought I would at least give it a shot. And if it doesn't work, I'm screwed. But it's whatever. But anywho, kind of the reason that I'm recording it and potentially broadcasting it is just, firstly, it's good to know that other people can kind of pitch in on it, and it's also just kind of a very subconscious thing for me, that I know that people are watching, and therefore I kind of take it more seriously, because otherwise what's even the point of trying to articulate, essentially, because I have a really hard time articulating for myself. So I'm gonna articulate for you, non-existent person watching this. And if you are existing, I'm sorry. I don't know how you found yourself in this part of life, but I can't help with that. Anywho, I'm playing hardcore mode just 'cause it'll be a won't make me take it too lightly, but also not too seriously. Like I'm not just gonna hang out and make a house. I'm gonna actually try to make progress. Which is also a good pushing motivator. So essentially, I wanted to talk about. I wanted to make this about my psyche, essentially. Like, I don't know. It's super easy for me to get caught up in all sorts of different life things, and I don't really process how my brain works, and that can be kind of dangerous for me, because my brain just kind of goes off on its own and kind of does whatever it wants when I don't pay attention to it. It's basically a child in a candy store, and I have to kind of keep an eye on it. So I'm just gonna try to do that, and yeah, essentially this is my way of keeping keeping an eye on myself. Um, and also I just wanna learn what the heck is going on inside my brain, because it doesn't really make that much sense to me. And so I think it would be helpful if I'm able to understand myself better. Just like I think it's probably helpful for a lot of people to do that. And yeah, I think that'll be good for me. But anywho, the thing I wanted to talk about today is, I don't know, I have plenty of different things that I could talk about, but let's see. I want to start out with, I don't know. I basically have a list of all of the different kind of different character traits that I believe that I have. And I don't know how accurate they are, but that's not really the point. It's more the fact that I can kind of see my own thought process. Because my ultimate goal is to, essentially, it's kind of like seeing a character in fiction. Like, I want to be able to write myself as a character, essentially. Like, to know myself that well. And I think it would be very helpful to, I think it would be helpful for anyone to understand themselves to that level. Because I kind of have multiple different modes that I go into. And the one that I'm trying to bring out in this podcast is kind of my observation self. And the nice thing about my observation self is it's really good at identifying problems and just kind of observing and learning and kind of going through all of that different noise. And I think that's very helpful. And if I'm able to do this thing, which is kind of difficult for me, being getting that out to the point where I can verbalize my articulating self instead of just thinking it, because normally my observational brain really only comes out in thought, and as soon as I try to translate it over to speech, then it falls apart because I start to go into other more social modes, I suppose. And that can be very difficult because then it kind of leaves me in a rut of not really being able to get help, or, you know, all of these different things. Like, I want to try to figure myself out, and I think that's a good goal for anyone to have. And so maybe this is the way to do it. And I think in the future I am going to try to have other people come on and talk these things through with them, because if I find the right people, excuse me, it can be really helpful to have that feedback and kind of ask questions that I wouldn't think to ask myself, essentially, and also just kind of get their opinion and their worldviews, because I only have my own, and I'm allergic to my room. And yeah, it's just a good thing to have conversation about in my mind, and so I'm gonna try to do that. But for now, I'm on my own. I'm trying to enjoy life and all of these different things, and I just want to be able to verbalize myself, essentially. And that's, I don't know, I'm falling into that rut again, because I naturally, as soon as I put myself, or someone else puts me in front of a camera or in front of a recorder, like, I've tried to, like, turn on the little voice memo thing while I'm driving in the car while I've had a thought, and I just can't do it. Like, I just suddenly go into some other mode where it's, you know, that's not helpful. It's just me going into performer mode, and you can't articulate, or I can't articulate when I'm in performer mode, because one part of my brain is used in my theory. One part of my brain is kind of the thinking side, and one's the acting side, and they kind of they just kind of do their own things in separate parts of my brain. So it's kind of infuriating for both sides. But I don't know. I'm focusing too much on the game right now, which is kind of what I was hoping to avoid, but it's really fine. So yeah, I think those are all of the things that I wanted to say about the podcast itself, and I think if other people want to join, that would be cool. But not really what is necessary. Like, I don't need to have other people to articulate my thoughts, hopefully. And if I do, then it's kind of counterintuitive. So I'm going to see if I can try to get this done, like, I don't know, once a week, hopefully. And I just want to get my thoughts out, essentially. I think it's important for anyone to do. And so I will. I think I, more than most of the people that I know, are a lot more proactive in doing things that I want to do. Like, I talk to my friends all the time about all of the different things that they have, their interests or their whatever, and they just, like, can't get into it. Because they wouldn't understand. I don't... Such a bad meme. Anyway, so this is my way of dealing with my problem, which is a lack of articulation, essentially. And I want to learn about myself. That's the primary goal. I think I have a lack of control when it comes to it, though. Like, I don't really get to control... I don't know if this is normal or if it's just me, but I can't really control what I care about. Like, I care or I don't, and that's very annoying sometimes. And I don't think I hear other people talk about that, but, like, if someone's talking about something that really interests them, I can kind of feel my own face changing to the point where, like, I just don't care, and it shows that I don't care, and I wish that I didn't, because, I want to be able to support people in what they are interested in, and I want to be able to kind of share that interest, but it's really hard for me to do because of the way that I work. And so I'm just trying to... I don't know. It's just annoying to have that lack of control. And I think it extends far past, like... As an example, I really wish that I did not have the interest in Epic that I do. Like, it has been such a pain in my butt that it has, in my mind, not really been worth the time and effort. And I'm a very obsessive person, and that's not really a good thing to be in general, I would say. Like, I would not advise people to be obsessive about anything. But I am, and that's kind of, it's just something I have to live with. And I think another part that is important to this whole conversation of figuring yourself out is you can't try to be someone else. And sometimes there are things that you will struggle with, or you can't really control like some other people can. But what you can do is work the best with what you have. And so that's kind of my primary goal, is just in life in general, is figuring out the best way to deal with what I have. Because I talk to my friends all the time, and they're like, oh, you're having trouble with this, why don't you just do that? And then, like, there's this super simple solution. And I'm like, listen, I really wish I could, but my brain doesn't really work like that, and my brain does what it does, and I just have to kind of roll with the punches. And it's just annoying, but it's what it is. And I wish I could do something about it, but I can't. So I'm going to try to do the best with what I can, if that makes sense. And that's why I'm here. I want to understand the best way to deal with myself. I'm losing it. stop focusing on Minecraft. I don't know. I think if I can get to the point where I can fully just let it kind of fade into the background, it's going to be helpful overall. But it's such a beautiful game, truly. It's oversimplistic. Ow, my ears. Anywho, I'm really off track. I am trying to figure myself out, and I'm trying to do that here, and I have a lack of control. I'm getting myself back on track. And the primary problem that I've been having with it recently is listen, I'm not a fan of negative emotions. I know it's very, like, what a shocking realization to have, but I have a very hard time with negative stimuli. I'm very sensitive to stimuli, and I need a lot of stimuli because I'm just kind of that kind of person. But to deal with something negative happening is horrible to me, and I have a really hard time dealing with it. Like, recently, I've had an ex for the first time ever, and it's a super weird experience because, like, rationally, I don't have any negative thoughts or, you know, feelings about her, and yet every time I see a picture of her or talk about her, it's just like a knee-jerk response of, like, pain and sadness and all of these things that I wish I didn't feel, because we used to get along great, and that's why we got along, and now we, like, can't do that anymore because I'm pretty sure both of us just have that negative response, and I'm sure that's normal for those kind of things, but it's, like, so hard to move on from that just because of the fact that it's so hard to control those feelings. And I've dealt with that a few times, and it just makes me sad that I can't deal with that better, and I wish I could. But like I said, it's all about taking the optimal path with what you have, and you know, that sucks, but it's what it is. And I don't know, I'm not really one to shy away from my problems. Like, I know a lot of people just don't deal with problems, and that's very strange to me. I think it just eats away at me for the most part, that it's just in the back of my conscience, and I just can't let it go, essentially. Like, it's such a pain, but I live with what I have, and so if I can't let something go, then I need to deal with that problem. And so I will, like this zombie here, but I'm not actually gonna deal with him. Anywho, that's not really what I was trying to get to. Yeah, like, I have a few different people, like, that used to be really close with me, and now it's just pain, and it sucks. But I move on with it, essentially. Like, yesterday, I saw my ex at a place, and for the most part, I had dealt with all of the things that I wanted to deal with, right? I didn't have any regrets about any of it, except for one little tiny thing. And essentially, I don't know, I was feeling all of the different stress and whatnot of that situation, and instead of leaving like a smart person would do with so much negative stimuli, I went up and talked to her and said I felt bad about the last thing that was bothering me, and now I feel better because I don't have that kind of just looming over me, because it's really easy for things to loom over me. And so that was the optimal solution in my mind, was to deal with it. And maybe I'm wrong that was the optimal solution, but I don't really care that much. Like, that's what learning is for. And I haven't had any reason to think it was a bad decision, so I'm gonna stick with it. It's not like I can do anything about it now, but if I was put in the same situation, I would do the same thing again. It's ripping off the band-aid, essentially, of just deal with your problems, and that's kind of my mentality, and it's painful, but it's kind of what needs to be done. And now I feel better about it overall. And yeah, I don't know. It really sucks that I don't have that control, because I am somewhat of a control freak, if you don't know me that well, essentially. And yeah, I was going somewhere with that, and I don't remember what it was. But let's see. Yeah, I don't have control over how I feel, and it's almost as hard to control how I act. And like, I'm a very impulsive person. I'm extremely impulsive, and that was kind of against my impulses to just not deal with it. So it's just a constant battle in my head, essentially, that I think everyone fights, but I'm trying to be as aware of it as I can to deal with it. And if like it feels like there's just kind of this like, my brain is just kind of a really dumb elephant, and I'm doing my best to just kind of push that elephant in a good direction, essentially. Like, you can't push an elephant, but you can kind of, like, you can take a carrot or whatever elephants eat and just kind of lure them along. And so that's what I'm trying to do. And I think if I can have a better understanding of how that elephant works, then I can be better at luring it. And that's how my brain works. And I don't know. I don't think I necessarily need to have things to say here. As many things as I have to say, I think it's going to be helpful for me to be able to just spend the time. I might just have moments where I'm just silent for a while and I'm just thinking about what to say. And I think that's alright, because I'm trying to connect my voice to my thought process, because occasionally I can do that, where I'm not actually having to think about what I say. It's just the things that I am thinking that are coming out, like I am now, kind of. But it's still hard to connect that to my talking process is a lot different from my thinking process, and so as I can kind of merge those together, then it can become the most helpful for articulating, which is the goal of this podcast, is just articulating good things, if that makes sense. Also, did I grab all my... Yeah, I grabbed all my things. And yeah, I think it's really hard to articulate sometimes, especially when it's about yourself, because it's really hard to have that kind of self-awareness about the painful things in our life, but it's good for us, essentially. Like, sometimes you gotta take the full force of your bad decisions and make sense of it all, in my mind. And that's what I'm gonna try to do. I don't know, as I talk more, and I'm really easily just dropped into a vortex of thinking about what I'm saying too much, and it's so easy for me to do. And that was my primary concern when trying to put this podcast together, is just, as if I put any effort into this, it's so easy for me to fall into that pit of kind of just overthinking everything I'm doing, and I really don't like that either. And it's what it is. And if you hear me stuttering, that means that I'm thinking about too much of what I'm saying, or I'm focusing too much on the game, and I very easily start overthinking things, and I don't like that. And when I do start stuttering, that means that I'm thinking about something that I'm not saying, and like obviously there are going to be some things that I think that I don't say, but for the most part I just kind of want to let it flow out of my mouth and just let it just not worry about it too much, essentially. And I think that would be nice. That's my primary goal here, is being able to articulate, you know? And I'm going to try to this is my goal for this podcast, is I'm basically just going to force myself in a room and play Minecraft for an hour and just let myself think. And I'll think out loud, and I'll just go where my brain takes me, even though I say that my goal for this is figuring myself out, and that's not really how my brain works. Like, my brain's just kind of going to go where I go, and if I don't just go with it, if I try to fight myself and try to stay to something that I don't care about, then my brain isn't going to play along. It's leading the elephant. And I think that's a decent example of kind of what I'm trying to explain right now, is my elephant will start to overthink what I'm doing and saying, and my rational brain is trying too hard to just push it to, you gotta figure yourself out. You're not talking about the thing you're supposed to be figuring out, except for what my rational brain fails to realize is the fact that just by letting my brain be my brain, I am doing that thing, and I think that's good. So essentially I'm trying not to overthink anything I'm doing too much, and I'll be better for it. I don't know what I'm smelting gold. It doesn't do anything. But yeah, I'm extremely self-conscious about my voice, which is another problem about doing this whole thing, is that I just don't like it. And the problem is when I start to go into performer mode, there's the very easily differenced between my performer mode and my just basically directly connecting my thoughts into my voice, just thinking out loud, essentially. And it's so easy for me to go right into performer mode where I start overthinking everything I say, and that is really hard to get out my thoughts when I'm overthinking everything. Oh, there he is. And that's not what I want. I just want to be able to... Holy crap. One moment. There we go. Since I'm on hardcore mode, if I die, then I lose everything, so it's kind of important that I don't do that. But anyway, that wasn't really the point that I was trying to get to. Anywho, I really need to let myself think, essentially. Like, if I'm going to get anywhere in this podcast, then I have to not try to force myself into any specific role about what I'm trying to talk about. And it's one of those paradoxes of... This is another thing that I want to talk about in the future with this podcast, is the paradoxes of life. Essentially, the basic idea being... the perfect example being trying to sleep. Like, if you think about trying to sleep really hard, then you're never going to get to sleep. Then that's the kind of paradox that I'm talking about. And my overthinking paradox is an example of that. And jeez, this is big. Ow. I don't like those noises. I'm very easily distracted in this game when there's a threat. Okay. Holy crap, man. Really glad I made that armor. So I'm gonna be going back and forth a little bit about what I'm doing, what I'm thinking about. Sorry about that. For those of you who really don't care about Minecraft that much. Anyway, I'm figuring myself out, and that's the primary goal. But by not trying to figure myself, I will figure out myself better, and therefore that's where the paradox comes from. And yeah, it really sucks. But there's not really much I can do about it. So I'm just trying to not just overthink, because it's so easy for my brain to overthink things. And that's a pain. And so I'm going to try to make a bow and explain that, even though I'm not going to, because my brain farts. See, as soon as I start to think about overthinking, and I overthink that, and I'm like, oh no, you're gonna ruin the podcast by speaking like an idiot, and by doing that I start speaking like an idiot, and it is a vicious cycle. I don't like vicious cycles. They're kind of a pain. I'm just trying to focus on getting the ores that I want to get, except for I don't really want much of this stuff, and I'm trying to remember what I need to do for this part of the game. Because when I'm trying to think about the game, then I don't really think about what I'm trying to say in terms of self-improvement, and therefore it just ruins both of them. And so occasionally, I'm sorry, I'm going to talk about the things that I'm trying to think about in the game. And hopefully that'll also help me a bit better connect to my thought to speaking, whatever you want to call it. Ooh. I just wanna connect those two things. And I have horrible nose junk that is making it very hard to speak as well. Holy crap. And I'm down to my last food. Anywho, I'm trying to not think about that creeper over there. I'm trying not to let myself be in silence, because my brain is always thinking about something, and that makes it really easy to talk about a lot of things, but I don't really want to. Every time I'm silent, there's never a point where my brain isn't doing something. So whenever I'm silent, that means that I have decided that whatever I am thinking is not worthy of, oh, that's not nice. Not worthy of you guys hearing, if that makes sense. And so I start to filter my speech, and then it just makes everything worse. So I'm working really hard not to filter my speech, and I'm starting to think about the fact that I'm starting to repeat myself, and that's kind of annoying me. And like it's just a nuisance, because here's another problem with my brain. That's my catchphrase for the whole thing, is that I overanalyze everything I do, and that makes it really easy to, in combination with the fact that I am extremely forgetful, means I just go in circles. I'm a dog chasing my own tail when it comes to my failures and what I could have done better, and kind of the reason that I need to deal with problems quickly that are bugging me, because I can't process information and then have it processed. If something's really bothering me, then I process it, I come to a conclusion, it's a proper conclusion, it's the optimal conclusion, and then it kind of starts to fade out of my mind, and I start freaking out about it again, and then I come to the same conclusion as I did last time, and it's just stupid. Like, it's such an unnecessary thing to do that I really wish I could stop, but I can't. So I'm working with the best with what I have, and that is by, if I'm going to think about it, then I should do it properly. And that's really why it's important for me to talk to other people about it, because it's a little bit more solid than just thinking a solution and being like, oh yeah, I have the solution to that now. And when I'm talking to other people, kind of like I'm simulating right now, that I can do that without having to keep the attention of someone for an hour, essentially. Although I'm going to try to. I'm going to attempt to kind of just ramble on all of my thoughts and hopefully have someone to bounce off of. Because that's kind of a double-edged sword. Because it's great to have someone to bounce off of, but also it's really hard to keep it on track, or to keep it, there's certain things I want to deal with while working on things like this podcast, and it's really easy to get sidetracked or to get too goofy, or there's just all of these different problems and benefits. Everything's pros and cons essentially that I'm constantly weighing out in my brain, and I don't know if anyone's ever why am I talking to like this as an audience? Essentially, there's this show called The Good Place where there's this one character called Cheaty, and he overthinks everything, and that makes it a problem for him because he can't take action because he's always overthinking things. And that hit a weird note for me, because I'm kind of a similar way, and I just rethink things over and over again, and the benefits and the downsides, and I have a really hard time taking action. So it's kind of that kind of thought process is really balanced out with my my impulsiveness. And I'd say that's one of the places where my impulsiveness kind of comes in handy, is the fact that I can take action on my previously thought out plans a lot easier than if I wasn't as impulsive, because I am always unsure of my decisions, because nobody's perfect, and I don't know if I've made the right choice or not. And that's kind of the problem that the Cheaty character has. And my impulsive side just makes it takes those educated guesses and runs with them, because it's a risk taker, right? There's a part of me that is very much not a risk taker, and there's a part of me that is very much so a risk taker. And it's really hard to explain, and I'm not sure of a great example of my risk-taking side. But a good example of my very not risk-taking side is that I do not let myself get down to a quarter tank of gas. Like, I do not take that risk. And I don't completely know why that suddenly becomes one of those things that I don't want to take a risk on. But it just is. Like, I am terrified to just run out of gas on the side of the road. But other things, like doing my laundry, for example, I will let it sit there on weeks on end, and I run out of socks, and I just start reusing socks because I'm flipping gross or whatever. And I need to be able to have that same kind of not, like, I don't... Sorry, give me a second. Articulation. My brain's actually having a brain fart right now, so I have to, re-put it into words. So essentially, there's a risk-taking side of my brain. There's the very not risk, the decisive, preparedness side of me, and I don't completely understand what justifies one thing being a risk and one thing not being a risk, essentially. And I guess it could be some level of danger, but there are things that I take risks in when it comes to danger, and that just isn't one of them. And I don't know why. Also, have no food, so I'm kind of screwed. I should probably go back up to the surface. But anywho, I don't know. My brain goes all over the place, if you couldn't tell, and it circles a lot. So if someone is watching this, I think some of the things that I'm saying will probably show in my actions and the way that I talk, like the fact that I am very forgetful, so I will cover the same ground many, many, many times and still come to the same conclusion, and it's just really silly. And I hope that absurdity comes off to the viewer as it does to me, and it really annoys me, so I'm trying to really process that and figure it out, because if I can't fix it, the least I can do is understand it. And I think that a lot more people should try to do that with themselves. And it's a lot easier to study other people than it is for yourself, because then you don't have to take into account things like thoughts, because if you can't read other people's thoughts and emotions without them expressing them, just all like, you can't see inside other people's brains, so it's a lot easier to study them. With myself, I can't study myself as easily. I really enjoy studying people. They're fascinating to me. But it's really hard for me to study myself, partially because my actions, like, I don't understand my thought process, just like I don't understand other people's thought processes, but I have my thought process, and it still doesn't make sense to me, and that's freaky to me. That worries me, that I don't understand my own thought process, essentially, and I don't know how to, like, mentally comprehend that fact, that my brain is, like, running on autopilot, like it is kind of right now, where I can think about stuff, and I don't even consider the fact that I'm speaking out loud, because it's just an automatic process, just like walking is an automatic process. Like, you don't think about taking one step and then another. It's all automated, and that freaks me out, because I can go an entire day without really thinking about what I'm doing in the slightest. Like, plenty of days I'm like that, and that worries me, because I watch myself. I'll like tune back into my own body after, like, my thinking side just shrinks, just kind of rolls up into a ball inside my head and thinks about whatever other things that it wants to think about, and then my body just goes off and does whatever dumb crap that it does, and then my thinking brain comes back, and it's like, what the heck have you done to our life? And you've ruined you've ruined so many things now, and now I have to, like, come back in here and fix it all. And that's such a surreal feeling, and that worries me that I do that. Also, that is super cool looking. Like, I can't concentrate because there's a flippin' cool stuff, and there's a village over there. But anywho, yeah, like, I worry myself that is how my brain works, that it just kind of goes on autopilot, and I don't know what to do about it, that it goes on autopilot. And it's such a strange contradiction, because I'm really good at dealing with people, and, talking to people, and entertaining, and all of those different things, but that's only for one part of my brain, and another part of my brain is completely horrible at it, and it basically just kind of only interacts with people for itself, and that can really easily destroy relationships, because a selfish mindset is advantageous, and that is very not good. And essentially, if you're super advantageous and you're backstabbing and whatever you may do as an advantageous person, then once my thinking brain comes back in and is like, oh crap, like, I have to fix all this stuff now, I ruin relationships, because you can only do that to a person so many times, right? You can only be like, I just betrayed your trust and screwed you over and took advantage of you, but I'm thinking properly now, and I understand where I screwed up, and I really do actually, care about our friendship, and I don't want to betray you, but, like, that's how part of my brain works, and that sucks. And I just want to be able to not do that to people, essentially. I don't want to take advantage of people, at least this thinking part of my brain. And I recall thinking about all of the different times that I would take advantage of people, and I would do all of these different things, and it's surreal to have. Okay, give me a second. It is surreal to have memories of a completely different mindset, of a completely different philosophy to life, and try to comprehend it, because it doesn't feel like my own thinking. because it's completely against all of the things that I believe. And I don't know how to deal with that. Like, that's so strange in my mind. And I don't know what to do about it. And oh jeez. See? Look, articulating. Now I'm having like a an existential crisis because I never really thought about the fact that I'm remembering a thought process that doesn't seem like my own, which is the main problem that I have with articulating things. Because when I have a really interesting thought or a thought train or whatever, it's inside my thoughts, and when I try to speak, it goes into my speaking side. It's a little bridge, and if you couldn't tell, that was my kind of more performy side. These cats. Anywho, kind of going into that other mind, like it hurts my brain to think about the fact that I do that. Right? I go into a completely different personality, essentially. And it's so strange to me. I don't know if you guys can hear those noises, but they are terrifying. Anywho, that's not really my point. I'm thinking about all of these villagey things. But anywho, like, I've been legitimately considering the question of if I have some kind of multiple personality disorder thing, and I know it sounds absurd, and I'm quite aware that it is absurd. Crap. But I don't know what else to think about it, because it just doesn't make sense in my brain. I feel like I'm kind of a walking contradiction in everything that I do, because one day I'm completely fine and nice, and I put everyone else above myself and do everything I can to help them, and the next day I'm like, screw you all, I'm going to be manipulative and take advantage of everyone. And it's whiplash, essentially. It's like psychological whiplash that's like so hard to deal with in my own mind. I just don't know what to do about it. Like, this is why I'm trying to figure myself out, is I don't make sense to me, and I really wish that I did. Also, I need to kill this guy. Come here, buddy. Oh, there's two of them. Nope, I don't want to deal with you. Oh no. Holy crap. Sorry, this is all really messing with me. I'm trying to deal with all of different things at once. Give me 30 seconds and I'll get right back to you. Ah, jeez. My brain is all over the place. It is just a mess. But I think kind of having this moments of realization is overall better for me. Like I said earlier, it's about having that kind of temporary pain and dealing with that. Where'd the other guy go? And like dealing with the problem, essentially. Like, I'm not one to shy away from my problems. I mean, I am, but I ultimately try to deal with them. And that is a difficult thing to do, and that's a painful thing to do, and I don't like doing it, but I know it's good for me. And that's a strange thing to try to understand about yourself, is, you're not perfect, and you have all of these different things that are really hard to control, and I'm doing my best to control them, but like there's only so much I can do. It feels like I really wish that I could do more to become a better person, but then on other days I feel like giving up all of my good nature and friends and all of these things, and just getting everything, like getting as much as I can and living for myself essentially. And it's, you know, mental whiplash, and I don't freaking know. I wish I knew. Also, I need to go to the Nether. I just remembered. But that's not really my point with all of this. I'm going through like mental exhaustion right now because I don't know. Like I know I'm thinking things, but I'm having a really hard time like mentally connecting them to my voice. Like it's not coming out in English words necessarily. It's just like a jumble. So excuse my silence. Just enjoy the rain. It's nice. It's calming. I just need to take a breather real quick because I'm doing too much brain work. So I'm trying to just enjoy the scenery. Like, look how beautiful that is. This reminds me, by the way, something I've been wanting to do is see the sunset more. The actual sunset, not Minecraft sunset. And just enjoy life itself more. Like it seems very important, and yet I'm just kind of letting it pass me by. And recently I've been trying to get out at night and look at the stars, and it's been really nice. And I feel like I'm missing out, and kind of my whole generation has been missing out on all of these great life things. And I think I do what I can to try to learn from previous generations' regrets and mistakes and all of these different things. I think one of my biggest motto's not the right word, but just like I really take to heart, the thing I most take to heart is my mantra. My mantra essentially is those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Like that really sticks with me, because I have the problem all the time where I make mistakes, and I'm like, oh crap, I've seen other people make these mistakes. And the worst part is when I'm doing them, I'm thinking, I think this is the primary problem, and the reason that it's such an important thing to keep in mind is I think, oh, I'm not like them. I am, I'm going to be one of the few special ones that it doesn't apply to me, right? That like I'm special somehow, and the way that people have dealt with history, like it's completely possible that there are outliers in history, that not everything works everything the same way for everyone. But I feel like even with my heart of hearts of thinking that I'm special, I'm not that like I shouldn't be testing fate by thinking that I'm somehow better than history, right? Because I'm pretty confident that I'm not better than history, just in general. Like I gotta stop making the mistake of thinking, oh, uh, just because everyone else has made that mistake doesn't mean I'm going to, even though I'm making the mistake as I'm mentally saying that, And it's so dumb. As I don't know how to deal with it. I'm trying to learn from my mistakes. And I think that's important. Also, I kind of had like topics that I had written out, and I'm pretty sure that I've already gone through like 8 of them, that I was going to have like unique episodes for each of them. But like, for me, an hour is such a long amount of time. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but my brain like, time is such an obscure concept to me that my brain just does not function well with it. Like, at my church meetings, I essentially just it feels like ages. And it's really hard to explain, and I generally just kind of go into my own thoughts, and I think about so many different things that just instantly just go right back out of my head, and I don't have them anymore, and I'll probably just rethink them at some point, and that's kind of a vicious cycle that I go through. But anywho, like, my my sense of time is very whack. Like, it's felt like 1 hour of talking feels like 4 hours of just playing video games normally, or more, like 8 hours. This has felt like 8 hours worth of playing in silence, or just with YouTube videos or whatever. Also, I love this, by the way. Like, that's kind of great. Anyway, I don't know how to do things anymore. I'm just trying to process, and like, my hour is almost up, and listen, this is so much cheaper than a psychologist, I'm telling you. And I think it's probably been just about as helpful as a psychologist probably would be to me. As much as I would like to have a psychologist's opinion on all of these things, I feel like it's probably not going to be whatever, $80 or an hour or whatever a psychologist is. But considering how my brain works, I probably could get my money's worth. Listen, the reason I'm talking about this is I've been debating going to see a psychologist about all of these things. But if I can articulate them for myself, then I might be able to better articulate it for them if I do decide to go. And it's all just a mess in my brain. And I'm gonna try to figure it out for myself first. And I'm gonna do what I can, and I'm gonna try to. I don't know. I'm a time watcher. I just watch the time, and everything's in slow motion for me because my brain moves at 1,000,000 miles a second, and it's kind of sucks. And you know, sometimes just killing pigs is helpful to me. I don't know why, but it is, and I'm just enjoying my time. And I don't know. As I think about the fact that it's just about over, I'm thinking about all the things that my brain normally goes to when I'm trying to go to the end of the video, and I'm trying to not do that. I'm trying to let myself think, essentially. And you know, my goal is to basically call myself out whenever I start overthinking anything. And you know, if I let myself just talk without the concern of screwing something up, then I'll probably be able to do it a lot better. So, time will tell. I don't know. I hope, if for some stupid reason I put this somewhere, which I probably will, knowing me, that I don't know. I hope it's a good idea. And I don't know if it's helpful or not. Like, that's kind of what concerns me. Is just, you never know anymore. What is life? I don't know. There's a desert. There's a good place to find Enderman. For those of you who play Minecraft, I'm trying to get more of these guys, and then I'm gonna go to the Nether. But anywho, I think that is all of the things. I'm just gonna wait out my time, and I'm just gonna talk a little bit more. And I'm enjoying the nice scenery. Like, I forgot how beautiful this game was. In such an absurd way. Like, it's really hard to define how this game became as magical as it is. Like, there's so many other games with such similar concepts, and none of them in my mind. Maybe it's probably to an extent a nostalgia thing, but it's just like, it's so strange to me. I might try to get into this more later in the next time, but also I just realized how flippin' sore my throat is. That things that are popular and great become toxic because of the fact that people love it so much, and so they obsess over it, and it annoys everyone else around them, and it's this super strange, contradictory thing. But anywho, I really need to give my voice a rest, because if it isn't obvious, I don't, as great as I am at it, my voice is not meant to be talking this long. Like, when I do talk to myself, it's very quiet and just to myself. Because I do this sometimes. Sometimes I just think out loud to myself. And it's helpful to be able to do that. But doing it at full volume as if I'm talking to another person has been very strange to me. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed whatever this podcast thing is, and I'll see if I can get more people possibly interested in it. And that's the end. Thanks for listening to my ramblings, I suppose. So I'll see you next time.